Hey guys, and welcome back to Best Practice TV. In this episode, what we're talking about is a generic business process flow. It's something that we want to talk through for every business and just getting a really clear understanding about where your process starts and stops. So I'll go through that, we'll lay it out on the whiteboard, and if you've got any questions or if you want practical examples for your business, comment below, because that's what this is all about. So you put the comments in and I'll give you practical examples. We'll shoot another video. Stay tuned. Okay, so thanks for joining us. What I want to just quickly do on the whiteboard is just do a really quick run through of a business process flow. I can use best practice as an example, or I can use a building company or a manufacturing company as an example. But ideally what most companies have is this really generic process flow, and I'll just quickly knock it out and we'll go from there. So everybody starts with marketing. So we're doing marketing, and that might be informal or formal, and we'll go into the depths of that later on. Then we go through to sales, and that's really getting, marketing could be just that you're a restaurant, you've got a sign out the front. Sales is, people come in and sit down, and then the service starts obviously offering stuff from the menu. Or it could be a business like ours where we do lots of stuff on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, all that sort of stuff. And then we've got a sales team, some of that online, some of it face-to-face. Then we move into finance. I'm going to call this one here operations. And then we've got, let's call it dispatch, for example. So really generic, really basic flow to any business, and really it comes down to what you're doing here. So you could be just a warehouse, you could be a restaurant, but if you think about operations, that's just the doing part of the product or service that you guys do, and then obviously dispatch. So here at Best Practice, we obviously don't have dispatch, but we've got this process flow. So when we're starting to look at that, if you think about a factory, for example, and I was speaking to a client the other day who's got a manufacturing facility. So they've got a design component to what they do, then they've got a fabrication component to what they do, and then they've got a distribution and dispatch component. So either the customers can pick things up at the door of their factory, or they'll freight them out to the customers. So they're obviously doing a lot of marketing. They've got a sales team. They do the financial component, which is the invoicing. Now, in that instance, the operations comes before the invoicing. That's what we call a cash negative business. If you're collecting the money before you give the product or service, that's a cash positive business. And then obviously they do dispatch. So often that can change, as businesses chop and change and evolve over time, who does what and how it happens can chop and change. And what you'll start to realize that you might make shoelaces, for example. And so you supply the shoelaces to the company that makes the shoes. And so you could vertically integrate that business, and you could actually buy the shoe factory, or the shoe factory could buy your business, and then those processes get connected together and you start to add modules to your operations. So we'll talk about that later on, but what's really critical from this presentation is what I want you to understand is this thing here, which is WWWWH. Now my question to you is, what does that stand for? What do you think? Well, it's who, it's what, it's when, it's where, and it's how. Now there's something missing from there. If you've heard this before, what's missing? It's the why. Now, I'm not going to go into the why. I'll leave that to Simon Sinek. If you've watched any of Simon Sinek's videos or his TED Talk on YouTube, it's had a couple of million views. He talks about the why. But the why is because this is our business. And so when you talk about all the people that work for the business, they're obviously there to earn their money and go home and look after their rent and their mortgage and their kids and their family and all their household expenses. But ultimately the why is it's about delivering this amazing service to a customer. So the question is, for each of these stages, we want to start to identify all of these elements and do a matrix, if you like. And so we've got who, what, when, where, and how for each of these stages. So who's in marketing? What are they doing? When are they doing it? Where are they doing it? How are they doing it? Why? Because it's about customers. When you get to sales, who, what, when, where, and how. Finance, who, what, when, where, and how. And so who might be the customer paying their bill. Operations. Operations might have a few components. In the business that we were talking about the other day, it's got design, it's got fabrication, and it's got a painting facility. So they design stuff and they fabricate it and then they paint it. And again, we need to look at who, what, when, where, and how, and do the responsibilities matrix. Who, what, when, where, and how. Who, what, when, where, and how. And then when we go to dispatch, they've got packaging and they've got freight and maybe storage or warehousing. And so again, for each of these, we've got to do the same thing. Who, what, when, where, and how. And what I'm saying here is that it's not optional. You can't leave one of these things out, and particularly the particular issue that was a contentious one in that particular business on that particular day was around packaging. And so when we're talking about who, someone has to package the product, because ISO 9001 in the quality system, for example, it says, well, what's the post-manufacturing protection of quality before you hand it over to the customer? Now, it's well known that in this particular business, the things that they make and they paint that all are very beautiful, they will get damaged. It's from a risk-based thinking perspective, which is what all the ISO standards are talking about now. From a risk-based thinking perspective, stuff gets damaged in transport. Okay, so who is going to package it? Now what we're talking about here is before you take on a deal, before you service a customer, it's important to be thinking about the next stage. And you've got to answer all these questions. You can't leave one of them out. You can't leave the who out, because something will bounce around the business and no one will know whose responsibility is. And you can't leave out the how, because people won't know what to do. So you've got to be thinking, okay, well, what's the plan? How are we going to do this? Now, you don't have to think about this whole thing and map it out so it's perfect beforehand, but before you move to each stage of the process. Now, this could be one customer at a time, or it could be the full design of the business so it can serve thousands of customers, but it's about mapping out those processes. Now, obviously, a couple of things have prompted me to shoot this particular process flow for you is because A, we're doing our CRM project. So if you've been watching our YouTube channel, you know that we're redesigning our CRM database, and the company helping us wants to know what our process flows are. So they want to know this: who, what, when, where, and how for each of these stages. But equally, when you're trading with a customer in this particular business that I'm talking about, and I won't name names, they have an issue with, from each of these business units, who does the packaging, who does the freight, and who does the storage. And the question there was, is it someone from each of these three teams, or is it the customer? So in that particular business, their service stops here and the customer takes over. So where does the customer take over is the question, because then the customer takes responsibility for the packaging and the freight in that example. So it is important to understand, this shift backwards and forwards of these responsibilities so you avoid confusion, and confusion's the key word there. So I'll just wrap this up. I think it's something to really start to think about. It does start to unpack something that we've got here at Best Practice, which is what we call our organising board. So we look at all the responsibilities, all the tasks for each of our teams, and then there's hundreds and hundreds of bullet points in each of these, team descriptions, if you like. And then that's got, obviously, here at Best Practice, it's got the CEO, and I've got managers in each of these teams in my business. So I use this system. It's quite effective. Then we can sit down, and particularly the how over here, if you like. This one here for all of these, how, at the bottom of each of these are what we would call methods. Now, this is where lots of companies get really caught up in what does their management system look like, because they think they need to go and write thousands and thousands of documents. But I can probably guarantee that the finance team really don't need a lot of policies and procedures, because they've trained as accountants and they have 4 or 5 years worth of training. They just know how to do their job, and there might be a few little guidance policies or documents that you give them. But when you get to your operations part of your business, there are some pretty big risks, if you like, with design, in this particular business, fabrication or paint, or if it was a construction company, you've got design, construction management, and project completion. Or if you're a service-based business, business that's got lots of services like us. We've got policies and procedures and processes and methods around delivering our service, because there's some key risks that we've got to manage, and keyword here, control. So the methods here specify what we would call controls. And you can have different levels of controls, and we'll do that in another video. But this is your management system, because this captures your methods. You can capture your methods with policies, procedures, videos, audio files. All those methods are the way that you communicate how to do things. So the how can be as simple as, well, the person just gets it and they're able to do it, or if they don't know what they're doing and they're doing it for the first time, then they can go and read some policies and some guidance notes or watch videos or that sort of thing. So, YouTube, which is something that I obviously really love because we publish videos, but YouTube has become the management system of the internet. It's the place that you can go for how to do things. So that's a really good example. What you're doing right now is watching video on YouTube to find out how to do something. It's not written down in a document, and you're getting my body language, you're getting the inflections in my language and my tone and my motivation and my charisma, all motivating and inspiring you to do something and follow the preparation of a process map for your business. Now, if I had just sent you an email with a whole bunch of black and white text, there's a good chance that you wouldn't have read it, and you probably would have hit the spam button. But showing you a video, then you can see that I'm truly committed to helping you. And so what I'd ask that you do is consider all the different ways that humans can absorb information, and consider that when you put your management system together. So don't buy templates. Templates are gone. If you're putting a management system together, stop buying templates. Just do stuff like this, get a whiteboard, map it out, take a photo of it, save the photo. That's a great looking process map when you make it specific for your business. Take a picture of it. That's a record, it's a document. You can save it, you can insert that photo that you've taken into a Word document or into a Google document, and you can save that, and that can be your very first version 1 of your policy. So don't get all caught up in templates and headings and company logos and all that sort of stuff. Keep it really simple, use a whiteboard, map out your process flowchart. So comment below if you want a practical example of this for your industry. I'll do it for you. Comment below. We'll get that to you, and I can do, if you want to send me a private message on LinkedIn, or if you want to send us a message here at Best Practice, I can do a practical example for you, and I can say, marketing, sales, finance, construction, warehouse, restaurant, accommodation, hotel, airline, helicopter business, cheerleading studio. I'm just looking out the window at all the factories, and I can give you some practical examples of this, and we'll put it on our YouTube channel for everyone to see. But that's the process flowchart. Talks about ISO 9001, gives you a bit of an understanding of what you need to look at, but most importantly, the takeaway here is who, what, when, where, and how. And your how is your methods. So this is the very last thing that you do. You say, how should we communicate with people what they need to do to achieve these outcomes and move through the business from a process flow perspective, and partition the responsibilities. Who. If you make a change, if you have a meeting and a catch up and you change your process on the fly and you're dynamic and being innovative, don't forget that these who's, how are you going to communicate with them that you've changed the process and someone else is responsible? You negotiated a different type of contract and the customer took responsibility for this process. How will your business know about that? Because you know what will happen? People in your business will stick their hands up and they'll say, not my job. Now that can be a good thing, happens here at Best Practice, and it's excellent because the people whose job it is are the good ones. They're the A players, they're the forwards on the football team, not the backs or the goalies. So, takeaway, comment below, I'll give you a practical example. That's been the process flow as part of a management system. There's a great bunch of stuff there. If you want more practical examples, hit subscribe on our YouTube channel. Give me some comments below, and Jack and I will have a chat about that. We'll see what we can put together for you. And have a look over on our Facebook page, our Instagram page, and connect with me personally on LinkedIn. So if you're watching the videos and you love the videos, I love interacting with everybody on LinkedIn, so send me a connection request. And I'll see you soon, next time on Best Practice TV. Bye for now.